andi on somi amma ko mi yeli be mon bindite to on binditi on binditi on subi bako on gidi jango man Allah sanjanani.
They say betrayal cuts the deepest when it comes from someone who once swore loyalty. And in Cameroon, it just happened, on camera, under the sun, no hesitation. Issa Tchiroma Bakary, former government minister, longtime ally of Paul Biya. He didn't whisper it. He declared it. Paul Biya no longer has the strength to exercise power. The government no longer serves the republic. It serves occult powers. This wasn't a political jab. It was a full-blown political funeral. 4 decades, Paul Biya has ruled Cameroon like a monarch, nearly 43 years in power. Longer than most Cameroonians have been alive. He's outlived coups, uprisings, and global shifts. He's been quiet, calculated, and untouchable. But today, the curtain has fallen. And one of his own just pulled the ropes. This wasn't said by the opposition. This wasn't a leak. This wasn't an offhand comment. This was a public speech. A manifesto of disillusionment. And the words? They hit like a wrecking ball. Tchiroma didn't hold back. He laid it bare. For 14 years, the president has not convened a single cabinet meeting. 14 years. No official policy summits. No roundtables. Just silence. Absence. Shadows. He no longer draws pleasure or honor from presiding over the nation. Translation? The throne is occupied, but by a ghost. Biya's silence has been interpreted for years. Some say he's ill. Others say he's a prisoner of his own circle. But now, a man who stood beside him confirms the unspoken. The president is absent. And Cameroon is adrift. 4 ministers have died. They were never replaced. The country is asking questions. So are we, his former collaborators. This isn't just stagnation. It's paralysis. It's a government decaying in real time, with no leadership, no structure, and no direction. Tchiroma calls it what it is. End of reign syndrome. Like a ship captain asleep while the vessel crashes through storms. But this isn't just about one man aging. Tchiroma says the vacuum has been filled by something darker. The government is now an instrument serving occult powers. Not metaphor. Not hyperbole. He says unseen hands are steering the ship now. Hidden elites. Powerful clans. Competing families pulling strings behind velvet curtains. Power is monopolized by 2 groups, fighting for their own interests. And in the middle of it? Nothing. Just an empty chair in the palace. This betrayal is personal, but it's also a mirror. Because Tchiroma is no outsider. He's been a minister. A spokesperson. A political survivor through every phase of Biya's rule. If he's speaking now, it means the center can no longer hold. The president is inaccessible. Invisible. His own activists live in poverty after 43 years of loyalty. That sentence alone is a revolution. And he didn't stop there. He exposed the final sin of autocracy. For 43 years, he never mentored a successor. He treated power like personal property. Let that land. No heir. No roadmap. Just a fading man in power while the system collapses under its own weight. This isn't just political mismanagement. It's abandonment. Let's pause. Because what we're seeing here isn't normal. In dictatorships, former allies don't speak out. They don't call press conferences. They don't accuse their leaders of serving occult powers. Unless something fundamental has changed. And it has. Cameroon's people are restless. The youth are tired. Social media is exploding. Videos of Tchiroma's speech have gone viral, not just for the drama, but for the truth. You cannot govern a nation by proxy. It's not just a quote. It's a challenge. Cameroon stands at the edge of something. A regime too old to move forward, too proud to step down, and too fragile to survive a united opposition. Tchiroma knows this. That's why he issued the call. I urge the opposition to unite. Build bridges. Present a single candidate in 2025 against CPDM. He didn't say fight. He didn't say riot. He said, focus. Because the only thing scarier than a dictator is a fractured opposition. If Cameroon's opposition continues to be splintered, Biya's system wins by default. But if they come together, the palace could fall. Let's not forget who Biya is. This man has ruled since 1982. He took office before the internet, before mobile phones, before most of the population was even born. He's been called everything: father of the nation, wise man of Africa, lifelong leader. But now, even those closest to him are using a new word: absent. And even worse, dangerous. Because Tchiroma's accusation of occult powers isn't just dramatic, it's politically loaded. In Cameroon, the word evokes secrecy, ritualism, and manipulation. It means people believe power is no longer accountable to law or logic, but to hidden, possibly sinister forces. That belief doesn't stay in whispers. It moves crowds. So what now? Here's what's at stake. A 2025 presidential election that could be Cameroon's most decisive vote in decades. A population increasingly vocal, connected, and fed up with recycled elites. A ruling party that has lost its ideological center, and now governs by inertia. And now, this moment. A defection so sharp, so public, and so damning, that it may be impossible to ignore. Tchiroma has flipped the table. But it's up to the people to decide what to do with the pieces. This betrayal isn't just about Biya. It's about the silence of the elite. The arrogance of power. The refusal to plan for tomorrow. Let's be clear. Paul Biya is still in power, but barely. And it's not the opposition bringing the heat. It's his own house. When your inner circle starts airing your secrets, calling out your absence, and rallying your rivals, it's not betrayal. It's a countdown. And Cameroon just heard the clock start ticking, and the world is watching. But what exactly are they watching unravel? For over 4 decades, Paul Biya has been the iron-fisted constant in Cameroon's turbulent political life. His face became synonymous with power, his silence a language of control. But now, silence has become absence. And absence has turned into abandonment. This isn't just a health issue. It's a vacuum. A dangerous vacuum. And nature, especially political nature, hates a vacuum. So what's filling that void? According to Tchiroma, it's not democracy, not leadership, not governance. It's occult forces. It's secrecy, hidden hands, and a power structure that no longer pretends to serve the people. This statement isn't just metaphorical. In Cameroonian culture, accusations of occultism aren't taken lightly. They tap into deep fears and truths about corruption, control, and spiritual betrayal. So when Tchiroma says Biya's government serves occult powers, it's a declaration of war on the regime's legitimacy. It paints those in power as puppets, not of voters, not even of a dictator, but of something darker, less accountable, more sinister. That kind of accusation doesn't fade quietly. It echoes. And the people are listening. On social media, hashtags like #BiyaMustGo, #OccultRegime, and #Cameroon 2025 have started to appear. TikTok creators, WhatsApp groups, and Twitter spaces are dissecting every word of Tchiroma's interview. Some say it's the truth finally spoken. Others believe it's strategic betrayal from a man trying to distance himself before the collapse. But whether it's genuine or tactical, the effect is the same. The walls around Paul Biya are crumbling. And this isn't the first crack. In recent years, Biya's extended absences from public view, strange video addresses, and refusal to appear at critical moments have sparked endless speculation. Who's really running the country? Is Biya still mentally present? Or is Cameroon being ruled by ghosts, shadows, and unseen generals? Now, a man from inside the palace has confirmed what many feared: there is no king on the throne. So what happens when a nation realizes its leader is missing, and its system has no brakes? Historically, these moments are dangerous. Across Africa, similar patterns have played out: aged leaders clinging to power through fear, fraud, and silence. In Zimbabwe, Mugabe ruled until the military turned on him. In Algeria, Bouteflika was ousted after mass protests over his health. In Chad, President Devi died and his son took over through raw force. Cameroon is at that crossroads. Will it be reform or rupture? Tchiroma is betting on reform. His call for unity among the opposition wasn't just symbolic. It was strategic. He's trying to light a fire under a fractured opposition movement that has historically failed to organize behind a single candidate. In 2025, that fragmentation could hand Biya's CPDM party yet another rigged victory. But with Tchiroma's defection, that equation may change. Now, even former loyalists are throwing their weight behind a change of leadership. That matters. It tells the public, you're not crazy. The emperor really has no clothes. The whisper is now a roar. But who could replace Biya? Names are being floated: Joshua Osei of the SDF, Maurice Kamto of the MRC, Cabral Libii of the PCRN. Young, bold, untainted by the regime's crimes. But the key question is, can they unite? Because as Tchiroma made clear, if they don't, the regime wins by default. And what of the international community? France, Cameroon's former colonial power, has long propped up Biya's rule for the sake of stability. But that support is starting to look like complicity. Human rights abuses, media repression, rigged elections, and now accusations of occult governance? France can't stay silent forever. Nor can the African Union, which risks losing credibility by backing long-dead strongmen. For years, Biya symbolized the old guard of African leadership: authoritarian, aging, unaccountable. But 2025 could be a turning point, not just for Cameroon, but for the whole continent. Because if Biya falls, the message will be clear. Even the untouchable can fall. Back in Cameroon, whispers have become chants. Chants are becoming demands. And the youth? They're not waiting. University students, market women, tech entrepreneurs, they're organizing online, talking openly, and refusing to be silenced. They know the cost of speaking out, but they also know the cost of staying quiet. Tchiroma's speech wasn't just a betrayal, it was a spark. And sparks, in the right conditions, ignite revolutions. Paul Biya may believe he still controls Cameroon. But power, once lost in spirit, cannot be held by force. A leader who hides cannot lead. A regime that fears light cannot govern in darkness forever. And a people who wake up can never go back to sleep. The countdown to 2025 has begun. And this time, Cameroon may not wait for permission to change, so to the regime still hiding behind titles and barricades, know this: Cameroon is awake. The lies no longer work. The fear no longer holds. The silence no longer protects. And when even your closest allies begin to speak, the end is no longer a question of if, but when. Paul Biya once ruled like a god. Now, he's being remembered as a ghost. And ghosts don't win elections. The people do. Cameroon is writing a new chapter. And this time, the pen belongs to the people. But if you think the movement is limited to Cameroon's borders, think again. The diaspora, scattered across Europe, America, and Africa, is more awake than ever. Cameroonians abroad have become digital warriors, live-streaming protests, fact-checking propaganda, and building alliances with international media. They're not just tweeting. They're organizing, lobbying, demanding sanctions and accountability. Because they know something crucial: global pressure works. And right now, Biya's regime is being exposed under global lights. Human rights organizations are picking up reports of repression, surveillance, and targeted arrests. Journalists are flagging Cameroon as a democracy in crisis. Even foreign governments, once comfortable in silence, are starting to pay attention. Behind closed doors, diplomats whisper what Tchiroma dared to say out loud: Cameroon is no longer governed, it's maintained. This distinction is critical. Because when a state stops governing, it becomes dangerous. Corruption thrives. Services collapse. Militias grow. And citizens lose faith. That's how civil unrest starts. And already, signs are flashing. Universities are turning into forums of resistance. Churches are preaching civic duty. Musicians and influencers, once quiet, are using their platforms to demand change. Even traditional chiefs, long tied to the regime, are beginning to hint at dissatisfaction. Something fundamental is shifting. And not even a strongman's silence can stop it. Now, let's talk opposition. Tchiroma's challenge was clear: unite or lose. And this is no time for ego. Cameroon's opposition has long been fragmented by personal rivalries, ethnic divides, and strategic missteps. That's how Biya has stayed in power, not by strength, but by division. But now, The script must flip. The next election won't be won by the most popular individual, it'll be won by the strongest coalition. Maurice Kamto, Cabral Libiai, Joshua Osi, Edith Kawala. These names matter, but only if they stand together. The time for solo campaigns is over. The people want one voice, one vision, one chance. And that window is closing fast. If opposition leaders fail to heed the call, they will go down in history not just as victims, but as enablers. Because silence now is complicity. Division now is betrayal. And history will remember. So what happens if they unite? Everything changes. Biya's machinery relies on apathy, on fear, on the idea that nothing can change. But united opposition would crack that illusion and force the regime to confront something it hasn't faced in decades: real competition. Imagine a debate stage where CPDM must defend 43 years of economic decline, youth unemployment, education failures, and authoritarian rule, not with slogans but facts. Imagine a joint opposition platform promising reforms, transparency, digital innovation, and inclusive governance. Imagine international observers flooding the country, cameras rolling, social media on fire. That's not fantasy. That's the power of momentum. And it starts with voices like Tchiroma's, voices once part of the problem, now willing to be part of the solution. So how does Biya respond? Historically, when cornered, strong men resort to the same tactics: repression, censorship, distraction. We should expect it, and prepare. Already, there are signs of increased surveillance, crackdowns on journalists, and ghost arrests of student leaders. But each arrest now carries a heavier cost. Each silencing adds fuel to the resistance. Because the public is no longer scared, they're angry. And anger is hard to contain when the truth is this loud. Now let's zoom out. Cameroon isn't alone. Across the continent, youth-led movements are rising. From Senegal to Sudan, from Uganda to Kenya, the story is repeating. Old leaders clinging to power while a new generation demands accountability. Cameroon's fight is part of a bigger wave. And if it succeeds, it could inspire a domino effect. Other regimes, watching closely, may begin to feel the heat. And that, more than any speech or protest, terrifies them. Because once the people realize they can win, it's over for the elites who fed on silence for decades. So where do we go from here? The next months are critical. Every speech, every rally, every hashtag adds weight. Every act of courage, big or small, pushes the needle. And for those in power, the choice is clear: change or be changed. Tchiroma's betrayal isn't the end of Biya, but it may be the beginning of the end. The last pages of this chapter are being written now, in classrooms, in markets, in rural towns and urban centers. And in 2025, they will be written at the ballot box. But they won't be written in fear. They'll be written in hope, strategy, and unity. Let this be the final message. Cameroon has waited long enough. For jobs. For leadership. For justice. For future. The excuses have expired. The cult of personality has collapsed. And the ghosts in power cannot hold what they no longer understand. This isn't about one man anymore. It's about 27 million people standing up and saying, enough. The road ahead won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Because when the people write the ending, they always write a better story.